going to go over the basic overview of what your final is going to be about. And then in the following videos, I'll explain in detail each of the 3 options that you can choose from and kind of what you might need in order to do that and what you don't need in order to do each of them. So originally was going to have a video portfolio. But obviously, we don't have access to the Mac labs that we used to, and I don't want to assume that everyone has access to video editing equipment, or, I don't want people to feel like they're going to have to go out when there's a advisory to shelter in place. So basically, I wanted to change how I approach the final so that everyone could feel comfortable doing what they can do, and that we can all still kind of get the main learning objectives that are at the heart of this course. So I decided that no matter which option you chose, they were going to be based around the same concept. And that way we can have a bunch of shared due dates, and we can kind of share our process and kind of see how each of us approaches a similar problem but from a different angle. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be promoting an app that you make up that solves a problem. So really, there's kind of 3 components to it. That sentence kind of breaks things down into chunks. So the first part is that you will need to promote an app. The app that you promote is something that you make up, so you're going to have to invent an app for us. And that the app that you invent has to solve a problem. So what does that kind of really look like in terms of your requirements? So I'm going to walk those back in reverse order. So your app has to solve a problem. Well, the definition of a problem can be pretty broad. So in the example that I gave you for the first homework assignment, my problem was that I had a bunch of nervous energy because I'm staying at home. So being bored is also a problem. And so if I'm playing a app that is a massive online multiplayer RPG, that is a app that solves the problem of boredom. If Lyft, Uber, and all those ride-sharing apps, they solve the problem of people not having access to a car and maybe living in an area where taxis aren't readily available. Most apps, if you think about it, solve some kind of problem. So think about what kind of problem you want to solve. So your problem can be serious or it can be fun, but you will need to tell me and everybody else what your problem is. So think about the apps that you use regularly. Is there something that you think could be done better? Is there something that, you really like and want to use as an inspiration, but have your own spin on it? And when you think about the apps that you use regularly, what problems do you think that they solve? A banking app solves any number of problems like, saving time so you don't have to go to an ATM to deposit your paycheck. They allow us to get instant access to transfer money to our friends and family. So there are any number of problems that we can identify within apps, even in something that seems like a really simple app. So what you'll want to do is pick out one problem that you want to focus on in your app and that you want to focus on your app solving. So that brings us to part 2, which is that you need to invent one. So you can either think of a problem that there isn't an app that solves. So is there something that you wish you could do with your phone that you can't do? There isn't an app for it. There's a typo. It should be wish you could do, not with you could do. Then you're going to invent an app that would solve that problem. So in other words, think of a problem that needs to be solved. No other app exists to solve it. And what would an app look like that solved that problem? And what would it need to do in order to solve that problem? Or you can think about an app that exists that you think could be better than it currently is. If there's an app you use a lot and you're like, oh my god, I really wish it had this feature, maybe that is the problem that's the heart of what you're looking to do. So, remember that you're making up a new app. You're not like doing the next version of Abyssrium, but you want to come up with a new app that solves a particular problem. So that's the kind of heart of the idea. And the 3 options are going to be how you're going to do the promotion. And the 3 options kind of revolve around different ways in which you can pitch the app to people. And I will go through the specifics of those and how you can do them with or without tech. So in terms of deadlines, I just want to remind you that the final project is going to be due at the time that you had scheduled for your final exam. There is no final exam in this class. It's you handing in your final project. So your final exam was scheduled 2 to 4 p.m. on April 29th. So I do have to turn grades around to the registrar by 4 p.m. on May 1st. So I don't have a lot of room to negotiate in terms of turning in any kind of late work. With that in mind, one of the options is actually to do a presentation. Because I want to allow for the fact that people might have technical difficulties. That presentation will be scheduled for the last day of classes, the 27th, and then if people run into problems, we can do it at 2 p.m. on the 29th. But I don't want anyone to run into the problem of something wasn't working, and so you weren't able to get your final project to me, and therefore, you would get a 0 on a really, large chunk of your grade. So I want to kind of make sure that we get everyone's project in a timely manner so that way we're not kind of running into any problems. So I don't really have a lot of wiggle room on this one. I know at times I will take things when they're late, but I have to get a grade in. So I do apologize, but that one's kind of a hard deadline. There are going to be some shared tasks in this. So since no matter what you're doing, you are making up an app, you're promoting an app that you make up that solves a problem, we do have some shared deadlines that you're going to end up posting online no matter what option you go with. So the first part is you got to think about the problem that you want to solve. So hopefully the first assignment where you're doing the emotional user journey map will kind of help you think about apps in a way where you can kind of think about what does and doesn't work in an app. And so what I want you to do is to, by April 3rd, which again is a Friday, all assignments are due on Friday. So that's the Friday at the end of week 12. I want you to go into the module for the final project. And in that module, you will see that there's a discussion board. And I've listed all the prompts down in there as well. But I want you to post your problem as a post inside that discussion board. Now you're going to be posting some other things about your project, and what I'd like you to do is to post your other pieces as replies to this first one. So you end up with a thread that will contain all of the aspects of your particular project, help kind of keep things organized. And so on that Friday as well, I'd like you to not only think of your problem, but think about 2 to 3 apps that exist that you will that you'll be drawing inspiration from, either as good or bad examples of what you're looking at. So if you're creating an app where there's a gap in the market and nobody does it, well then maybe you're going to take some visual cues for some other apps that are out there that you think share some traits with what you want your app to look like. Or maybe somebody takes a stab at answering this problem, but the app is completely unusable. And so this is an example of what not to do. Again, if you're making something where you're kind of building on something that exists, but you think that it could be done better, well, then you'll want to include that app in those 2 to 3 examples. So what I'd like you to do is to basically create a first post that tells me your problem, and then as a reply to that, give that list of 2 to 3 existing apps that you're drawing inspiration from for this project. Now you'll need to come up with a name for your app, but I don't have a specific deadline for that. I just kind of listed these in the order that I feel like if you follow this order and you follow these deadlines, you should be successful in terms of finishing your final on time. So at some point between the 3rd and the 10th in that week, you'll probably want to come up with a name because you will need to mention the name of your app at some point. And you should probably at this point pick which option you want to do so that you give yourself as much time as possible to actually complete the other specific tasks for the final. So make sure that also, depending on which option you choose, that you fill out any other extra stuff that you need to do for those. So if you pick the one that makes a video, you want to make sure you actually make that video, or if you're doing the presentation on Zoom, that again, you have your slideshow ready. Then you want to, by the 10th, think about some features that your app's going to have. So think about those inspirations that you have. What are they missing? What would you like to take from them, or what would you like to make sure that you don't do? And so those 3 to 5 features are things that you're going to end up highlighting in your promotion in some level. So I want you to, by the 10th, reply and list those features out that you're going to be kind of focusing on in your promotion. One of the modules that we're going to work through is on personas, and in terms of how we can think about the people who use the apps and the people who use products around our house. Pretty much everything that we encounter is designed with a particular kind of user in mind. Even if it's an eraser or a pen, there's a particular person that pen is trying to reach and try to get to purchase it. So we're going to do an exercise, a homework assignment for your ideal user for a random product around the house. And hopefully this is going to help you think about the persona of your ideal user of your app. And your ideal user is going to kind of guide how you do the promotion of your app as well. One of the things that I'll talk about in the individual areas is that if you're pitching something like a banking app to people, professionals over the age of 50, that's going to look and feel and sound a lot different than a dungeon crawler to the 18 to 25-year-olds. So consider who it is who would be like, if you could pick an ideal person for your app, who would it be? So there's going to be a template that you're going to need to fill out about the persona of your user, and that's going to be due on the 17th. And on the 24th, you're going to want to write or draw out the user journey for your app, and again, post that as a reply to your thread. And that's going to kind of follow a similar format to the user journey that you did for your first week back's homework, your user journey map that you did for week 11. And you want to make sure that in that, you actually touch on those 3 to 5 features that you listed on April 10th. So that's, really important that you've got all those in there. So you're going to hand that in as well. And then you just want to make sure that by the 29th, you've got everything else done. You've hit all the other deadlines based on your option, and that all of your work is in by 4 p.m. on the 29th to make sure that I can give you as many points as possible for your grade. And in the next 3 videos, I'm going to go through each of the options, but they'll be in a video on their own. So once you decide which option you want, you can always go back to that individual video to watch it.